Good morning. It is December 17th. I had my, hang on a second. I had my earplugs in my ear. Sometimes I wear earplugs at night because I don't want to hear outside noises. I want to make sure I block out everything. So I forgot I had my earplugs in. It was kind of funny. Okay, so anyway, I am here making this video. I am working on a video presentation this morning. Later on this afternoon, I will be following up on jobs that I did apply to. But for right now, my main focus is cranking out educational videos. And this one right now, I'm specifically targeting the subject of freedom of religion here in the United States, as well as how it relates to employment. Okay. So, and I understand that this played a huge role in my targeting. And one of the issues that I had addressed before is the numerous amount of people who participated in this cult activity. The messages that I was coming up with in my intuitive messages is obviously this relates to the Collins family. I am referring to Bruce Collins, his parents, Terry Collins, as well as Rick Collins, and possibly his sister Jennifer Collins. Now, maybe I don't recall Rick Collins being a Jehovah's Witness, but I do suspect that perhaps maybe he had Masonic ties, which I think is very common for a lot of men. My father as well had Masonic ties, so this is not anything unusual. However, some people do use their Masonic influence to gain access or influence, okay? And I do believe that there may have been, obviously, there has been some sort of manipulation, and this is what I'm addressing. Now, what I wanted to talk about is I know that I do believe that the Jehovah's Witnesses were in major error. One of the things that I thought was outstanding about Jehovah's Witnesses when I was younger, okay, now I am no longer studying with Jehovah's Witnesses. I never became a formal member of Jehovah's Witnesses. But one of the things that stood out in my mind at that time was their separation and their distinct effort to make sure that they did not blend in with other Christian denominations. That was something that was strictly forbidden and looked down upon. Yet I see people who were assisting the Collins family claiming that this was a religious issue, it was a moral issue. So these people were in contradiction. Now, like I said, I do believe I mentioned this in one of my newsletters. When I was dating Bruce many, many, many years ago, I had acknowledged the fact that he did not seem to really understand the tenets of his religion nor the doctrine of his religion. I do believe that perhaps maybe the Collins were associated with Jehovah's Witnesses just because, some people are associated with religion even though they don't understand the doctrines or what is required of them. I think that what happened in this community proves that these people were really on the wrong track. And if these people, and I do believe maybe they got, information or were inspired to take the kind of actions that they did based off of some of the people that I worked with. Perhaps maybe Selena Bruce or maybe Olita were telling them that this was an appropriate thing to do. This was a devastating thing to do, and they should have never done it. And it had cost a lot of people their lives, their jobs, their reputation, and everything, okay? So I want to make it very clear about, what Christianity is, or some people believe that Christianity is the how can I say it is we are a Christian nation. I will say that the majority of people here in the United States do identify as in some form of a Christian denomination. However, Christianity was never established as a formal state um, religion, okay? And we will talk about the First Amendment in my video, okay? We do have freedom of religion here, and what these people did was an outright nightmare, okay? The message I'm getting right now is that people here in the community are starting to recognize that it is employment law that you're supposed to be using and following in the workplace, and not religion, okay? This is the end result of people who do not either understand this concept or people who ignore this concept, okay? So I do also understand that the intent of the Collins family was actually 100% selfish. What they were trying to do was trying to force me into a relationship with Bruce Collins, okay, which was an absolute nightmare to me because this is something, like I said, and I had made this very clear. I need to get away from my past. And one of the most frustrating things that I find with religious people is because they are the only source of information that a lot of these people have is from their doctrine, I mean, from their, not their doctrines, but their religious associations. I do recall when I was studying with Jehovah's Witnesses many years ago that Jehovah's Witnesses kind of prevented their adherents or their members of looking out for other sources. Like, for example, a lot of kids or people within this particular religious structure are only allowed to read Watchtower and Tract Society publications. And I do believe that this has contributed to a lot of their mental illness. Some of these people I knew growing up. This is one of the reasons why I rejected Jehovah's Witnesses is because, like I said, just like I noticed, mental illness in my sister Tanya, I would say that the mental illness in the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses was just beyond something that I could even describe. It was very obvious that the majority of these people lived in a very sealed, closed environment to where their world made them mentally ill. So a lot of these people, like for example, the girl I used to know, Amanda, I believe that she needed psychological assistance. She needed some sort of help when it came to straightening out her problems, okay? But I understood that, the only person that she was really permitted to go to, right, would be like an elder in her congregation. And I would say, this is not, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but the reality is that a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses are very ignorant, okay? They are very ignorant. As a matter of fact, when I was studying to be a Jehovah's Witness, they were they were adamant about discouraging higher levels of education. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why I was surprised many years ago when I got a phone call from Amanda telling me that she was enrolled in Bakersfield College. I was excited for her. Why? Because this was like, wow, this is different, right? But who's to say? Maybe they flexed it a little bit. Whatever the case is, I'm just saying is a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses that I remember were very ignorant. I had mentioned at the time where I had rented a mobile home in Cal City, and the mobile home didn't even belong to this person. What they did was they found an abandoned home and then they decided to just go ahead and rent it out to me, okay? Never mind real estate laws, never mind the fact that they needed to actually possess that home to rent it out. These things never even occur to them because they are not educated, okay? So going back to this whole issue that happened in the community, what we were experiencing was a cult, okay? Now, I know that a lot of people were participating in this, including people like Selena Bruce, who was of a different denomination. As a Jehovah's Witness, these people should have never, ever, joined forces with these people, meaning because Jehovah's Witnesses are meant to be extinct. So exactly what was their motive? Their motive was jealousy and control. And this is something I will never forgive. Obviously, I've talked about this. The intuitive message I'm getting right now is that many people are rejecting the children or the kids of 533 as well as the Collins family. I appreciate this. Why? Because I think it's been very clear that these people have led a lot of people astray. It is not worth your job, your reputation, and your future stability to allow yourself to jeopardize those things. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. I am here to educate people, and I'm proud of my education productions, by the way. Okay, so now I am working on that this project today, and it does talk about religion. And like I said, I know that some people are under the misconception that the United States is a Christian nation. Christianity was never set to be a state religion, and I will be talking more about that. And this is not me, hating on Christianity. And when it comes to my spiritual faith, obviously I'm somebody who acknowledges that Jesus Christ existed. Okay, so, and I do believe that that is a part of my bloodline. So, to sit here and question my belief in Christ is absurd. Okay, even before I even knew that about my genealogy, I always believed in the philosophy and what Jesus stood for. Okay, as a matter of fact, this is the reason why I used to make the comparison and contrast of people who were trying to shove their religion down my throat. And I'm thinking, how does this measure up to what Jesus would do? You fail. So anyway, no, I mean, I understand, that these are not the principles of what Christ really was about. Okay, so why I chose not to be a part of mainstream religion is, like I said, I had seen that a lot of people had severe mental illness, and come to find out in 2023 that I'm a clone, and that a lot of people were attacking, a lot of religions were attacking clones. A lot of religious people in these Christian denominations were raised to have little sympathy. As a matter of fact, were instructed to be extremely abusive to people who had no control, or basically abuse people beyond their control. Okay, and like I said, I am very much aware of the deception that has gone on within these churches because of things like Nazi views and actually infiltrating things like the church. Okay, so yes, I do believe in Christ. I would say that I am somebody who has Christ consciousness, meaning I am aware of how my behavior affects people, and I do believe that I am in alignment with the divine. Okay, so I am looking forward to releasing the video. This is what I'm going to be working on. And I'm hoping that the employers here in this community, as well as outside the community, has taken notice of what this issue has caused. And I hope that you guys will be more interested in my future presentations. The message that I'm getting is that, so far I'm writing up my newsletter, and it's coming up pretty good. Okay. I am discussing this issue that happened with the bank, my Valley Strong Credit Union, and I do not want to have to discuss any more traumatizing issues. This issue was very traumatizing to me. Okay, because the message that I'm getting is that these people were fully aware. Do keep in mind that Che Whitmore reached out to me before I inquired about this issue. So these people were a part of the stalking network. Some people might think that's not a big deal. I think it's a big deal. Okay, why? Because we have illegal money operations going on, and there's a paper trail going on, and this is something that makes you wonder, how in the world could somebody have access to my account, this sort of stuff. I'm not comfortable with it, because there was a violation, and people were using religion as an excuse. And all of this relates back to a work issue. So when I talked about retaliation, me leaving Murray Family Farms, and then me going to different places of business, right? And then people presenting me, store clerks being instructed to do things, bank personnel's instructing to do things. All the employer do not have the legal right to do these sort of things. And this to me is a form of retaliation, a very long running form of retaliation, based off of what happened at Murray Family Farms. Okay, I feel threatened because, number one, I do not want Bruce Collins, nor do I want Joel Graham. I am trying to get away from everything that traumatized me from the past. I do not want to see the kids of 533. I do not want to see the kids I went to school with. I do not want to see residents of Lancaster, California. I am turning over a new leaf. The problem with a lot of employers I talked about, their dual affiliation or association with people that you may know. Like, for example, what happened over at Murray Family Farms was a good example of friends blending business. Okay, I am not friends with or family with I don't consider myself family of the Collins family. I don't. I never considered them my family. I chose not to marry in them, but I do believe that the Collins were friends with the Murrays, right? So in this case, when I was trying to initiate a lawsuit, which Murray Family Farm should have definitely been sued, okay, what it was is, oh, well, this is a friend thing, and then we're going to go around town and tell people that they can't do it. This is what I'm talking about. Business, friendships, family, so-called, these sort of mixtures are not a very good idea. And if they are, you need to make sure, if you're a business owner, that you are going to accommodate the employee and do not get stuck in these sort of what do you call it, business arrangements. Okay, because a lot of times these business arrangements can be very harmful to the employee. Okay, and this is why I'm talking about stalking and human trafficking and the illegal practices. These people were all on the wrong track. And I know that these same people, okay, who were bullying me at Murray Family Farms because I wanted to do things the correct way. I wanted to do things the correct way. Okay. Why? Because I believe in, when it comes to hiring and working with employees. If I was a business owner, which in I am, but I don't have like employees or anything like. But let's just say, for example, it snowballed into that, right? I want to hire the best employees you can ever imagine. Like I don't care what they look like. I don't care what race they are. If they are the kind of people, like for example, there was this one dude back in the days, back in the 90s, and I had a job, and he was a salesperson, right? This dude could sell like shit off the ground. This is how convincing he was. He was the number one person in sales, okay? And see, I wouldn't care. Like, I know he was a black dude, right? But and he worked for white people. But you know what? People really didn't care because he was racking up the dough. He racked up the dough. Like, and not only did he sell, he what do you call it? Include upselling. Like, oh, okay, you got this. Let me tell you about this particular accessory, and people were just listening in on him. He could sell anything. So it's these sort of people with these unique talents, these unique skills, these unique backgrounds, education, whatever they have to bring to the workplace. These are the people that you want. Okay, not and it should not be based on religion. When you bring religion into the workplace and you bring it out to the community, disaster is going to happen every single time. So anyway, I'm looking forward to working on this presentation. As a matter of fact, I woke up around 4 o'clock this morning and I kept thinking, I am so ready to make this because I feel as though it's important. Okay. I also have been thinking about sending it to churches. Okay. And like I said, I want people here in this community to understand I am not trying to attack your church. I'm trying to attack the people who get together and use religion as an excuse to keep people out of the workplace. Jehovah's Witnesses have nothing in common with Mormons, other than the fact that these people are aware of the cloning system. I would say Mormons were aware of the past of clones, and I would say Jehovah's Witnesses are aware in some way of the future of clones. Okay, but as far as doctrines, none of these. I would say most Christian denominations do not agree on a lot of things. Okay, so when they say America is a Christian nation, yes, there are all of these particular denominations, such as Presbyterians, Mormons, Methodists, Catholics, uh, all of these religions do acknowledge the fact that it's about Christ, right? It's about acknowledging that Christ existed and acknowledging the fact that they believe that Christ was the Son of God. That's it, right? But when it comes down to the specific doctrines, right? Some believe in divorce, some don't. Some believe in complete emergence of water in baptism, and some don't. When it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses, they have always been very different. Okay, that a lot of them uh, do not participate in a lot of things that other Christian denominations do. But one thing Jehovah's Witnesses have always made a point of was being distinct and being separate from other religions. Why? Because they identified these other religions as Christendom, meaning that they were not approved by the divine. So for these people to collaborate with these other people, I'm referring to the Collins, for these groups of people to collaborate with these other people and claiming that it's a religious issue, I'm going to call BS on it. I'm calling BS on it. Okay. Now, I also got the intuitive message that there was people who, these particular Collins group, okay, their selfishness is beyond, you know, I can't even. Okay, I don't know about whether Bruce is with Sarah or not, okay? But it's important for people to understand. See, some men want to keep women around for an option, okay? So I talked about me when I was working at Murray Family Farms, and now this makes total sense, okay? Remember when I talked about I was working at Murray Family Farms and everything was going great. I was happy. I was going to work every day. I was like, yeah, I'm going to work, I'm happy and everything. And then when I brought my husband at the time to the Christmas party, that's when everything went crazy. See, now from what I understood, Bruce was married to Sarah. So why would he care about me being with Joel at that time? Okay, so my guess is that perhaps maybe Bruce wanted to keep me available for an option. If things didn't work out with Sarah, he was going to sit here and try to get back together with me. Either way, I would have never allowed that to happen because I never wanted to marry Bruce. And as I got older, I realized and I was very grateful for my separation of Bruce. And I always knew that I made the right decision. Okay. But how selfish is it, right, for a man to sit here and dictate a woman's employment, right? Because he wants to keep her as an option. Okay. Meanwhile, I can't live my life. I'm not supposed to do anything. And he's supposed to be married and being devoted to Sarah. I shouldn't even be in his mind at all. Okay. But see, Bruce, I remember having a conversation with his mom, and his mom said, this is back in the 90s. She said, Bruce is the kind of person that wants people, or he'll be with you until something better comes along. Okay. So why in the world would somebody want somebody like that? I don't. You know what I mean? How dare you use me as an option? I am not an anybody's option. Okay. And especially, it's disrespectful to his wife, Sarah, for him to even be thinking about me at all. Whether that's being romantic or he's hoping that he's going to hook up with me to, maybe have his back in the future. Okay. And I do feel as though my son has been abused in this situation, which is something that I tried to avoid in the first place. So, like I said, when it comes to boundaries and stuff like this is important because my intention was to raise my son, right? I wanted to work. I never had the ability to work in an environment that was conducive to my emotional well-being. And I think that this is important when it comes to the workplace, okay? I was always dealing with harassment, being bombarded, most likely by the kids of 533 as well as the Collins family. Okay? What was the biggest issue was they should have respected me as an adult when I said I did not want to have anything to do with Bruce. Okay? My mother and my siblings, they should have just stayed out of it. Now, 30 something years later, we're looking at the result of people who cannot respect boundaries. So it's important. I want this to be a lesson to people. Okay? When you say something, okay, or if somebody tells you something, and they have every right to protect themselves. Okay, if they say this is what I don't want you to do because I'm an adult and I'm making a decision, respect it. Respect it. Because my mother made the mistake of thinking, well, you always get what you want. That bullshit, right? That bullshit. And that's exactly what ended up happening. Now they ended up wanting to prove their point. A lot of people lost their jobs. There's people who lost their lives. They lost their reputation. Okay, because they wanted to support something that they should have never been involved in the first place. Okay, now going back to the unfair treatment of me because the Collins were making, and see, Bruce has always been, this is another thing I didn't like about Bruce, okay? I didn't like the way Bruce, his logic was, okay? He honestly felt as though, or using the excuse of me being a clone, along with the kids of 533, right? Of being a clone to keep me and prevent me from having work decisions, okay? Bruce should have no role in my life whatsoever. At all. Okay, so Bruce has caused my son psychological pain, and I know that my son is not verbalizing it. But now that I do believe that my son's seen these videos, and he understands what he means to Bruce just by what Bruce did with his paycheck. Okay, I am not comfortable with it, and all of this abuse, all of this psychological trauma that I wanted my son to never have to deal with, right? Because I didn't want to marry that dumbass in the first place. Okay, ended up happening anyway because people did not respect my boundaries. So I understand why people do not end up living the life that they were really originally wanting to visualize, what they visualize for themselves. You have the right to live a good life. You have the right to establish boundaries, and you have the right to punish people when they cross over those boundaries. Okay? I wasn't being rebellious or trying to be difficult when I made the decision not to marry Bruce. Okay? I understood Bruce was a racist person and the things that came out of his mouth were inappropriate. Now, 30 something years later, it's not just his words, it's his actions. Okay, that has severely affected my son. And yes, I hate these people. And so now that I'm moving on with my life, okay, I want to make it very clear. Okay, I felt as though the sensitive subject matter of me being adopted, okay, right then and there, should have made it so that it was inappropriate for these people to come back into my life. It is inappropriate for the kids of 533 to, number one, harass me, and then me find out that I'm a clone, and then they still come back and try to force the issue of this Bruce Gordon collaboration that's not ever going to happen. Okay? Because now that I understand that I was adopted, right? I'm freaked out that people took the measures that they did. Okay? And it's has to be done and it has to be over with. Okay? And I'm angry that these people affected my son the way that they did. Okay. What else do I want to say before I dig in? So I hope this lesson has pressed on the minds of the employers here in this community, because your reputation will be damaged because of these people that did not. You hired these people because you felt as though they were qualified, that they were going to do the best for your company. All right, that they were going to uphold your company. Or maybe you're not even aware. A lot of business owners, especially if you are like 60, 70 years old, maybe you had a family owned business and this has been your business forever, right? And I would say, Old Town Bakersfield was a very small community and things were a certain way. Okay, so maybe you never even thought that these sort of issues had to come up, but now times have changed, and yes, these issues do come up, and a lot of people do a lot of stupid things. A lot of stupid things, okay? So yes, employment law is what people are supposed to follow, okay? Based on California as well as federal laws. That it should be the groundwork for every and platform for every employer. Okay. And see, a lot of people are surprised when they do stuff, right? Like this one dude, like I remember I was working at a particular company, right? This is back in the early 2000s. And he was shocked that somebody was presenting him with a sexual harassment lawsuit. He was like, I don't get it. And what did I do? He didn't understand what he did wrong. He should have understood what he did wrong. Just by the position that he was in, he should have understood what he was doing wrong. But see, what I'm saying is a lot of people get caught up in their peer group. So everybody else is sitting here making up religious rules willy-nilly, so somehow he did too. And that cost him, okay? It cost him a lawsuit. So a lot of people think, well, it's a righteous thing to introduce religion. It's a righteous thing to have morals, absolutely, okay? But your religion is not supposed to be enforced in the workplace. Also, what else do I want to say about this? So yeah, I'm going to work on this, and I will be sending it to businesses as well as churches. If I can get church emails, I will be sending it to them. And this is because, people who go to church, they want to keep their members, and I see nothing wrong with that. And, but a lot of their members need to understand that they are not supposed to be bringing this into the workplace and the reasons why. Okay. It's because what it causes. Okay, it can cause division. It can cause bullying under the and there's nothing wrong with people hanging up. Like if, for example, if you have by law, you are protected to have things that are special to you religiously. So, like for example, if you wear a cross around your neck, you're allowed to wear that to work. If you want to hang up a cross in your cubicle, because some people are okay with hanging up decorations. If you want to do that, you can do that. Okay, but it's what I'm talking about is when you're trying to force other people, manipulate other people, put pressure on people to convert to your religion or to accept doctrines that you practice yourself based on your religion. See, that is where it's a no-no. So I fully understand. I'm somebody who is well versed in employment law. Sometimes I have to look up the penal codes because I feel like sharing penal codes are important because I need to be showing proof that yes, this is a law. Okay. And we know what laws are for. Laws are created to prevent and correct things that are likely to occur in nature. So when people encounter somebody who's different, yeah, I would say it's normal, right? To, create some sort of problem for you, right? But everybody has rights and we have to be able to acknowledge that. So your ill behavior or whatever that might naturally instinctively come to mind has already been addressed in the law. So this is what I'm talking about, professionalism. Professionalism is of the utmost importance because this helps protect people from acting out of character. Stop being impulsive. Stop being impulsive. You have to make professional decisions. Okay. So when you encounter somebody, whether that be a candidate or an employee that may not be the same as you need to be focused on their work, with their skills they have to offer. And, you need to be able to make decisions that are not based on impulse. I would say using religion in the workplace is definitely an impulsive decision, and it's a bad decision. Okay. So I'm looking forward to sharing that presentation with you, and I will be back with another video sometime later. Take care. Bye-bye.